The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with light, voices, and pride. Hundreds of species sat in the floating tiers, each one believing themselves wise and powerful. Some were covered in scales, others with shimmering fur. Some tall as towers, others small but sharp. They all gathered to discuss threats to the galaxy. But that day, the conversation turned to Earth. The elder of the council, a being with skin like stone and eyes that glowed faintly, raised his voice so all could hear. I will remind you once more, do not provoke the humans, do not test them, do not make the mistake of believing they are weak. The words spread like thunder through the chamber. Many listened in silence, uneasy, as if recalling an old fear. But just as many began to laugh, some mocked the warning, shaking their heads. Others whispered among themselves, asking why such a fragile-looking species deserved so much caution. One alien leader, a tall creature with wings that glittered like blades, stood. Humans, they are nothing but a primitive race, still new. To the stars, they crawl on a single planet, they build ships of metal and fire, but nothing more. Why should we fear them? His voice rang with arrogance, and many cheered in agreement. The elder's eyes dimmed. Because, he said slowly, humans endure. Where others fall, they rise. Where others surrender, they resist. Their worlds are called death worlds. For even their home planet is cruel, filled with storms, predators, hunger, and endless wars. Yet they survived, and when cornered they do not break, they fight until the end. The words hung heavy, but again laughter filled the hall. "Old tales," someone shouted, "stories to frighten children." But deep within the council, records were files that most had never read, files that told of human explorers fighting off impossible odds, of soldiers holding lines long after defeat should have come, of fleets that vanished only to return stronger. Those files were sealed away, hidden, because the council knew one truth. Humans were dangerous, not because of their strength, but because of their will. Still, the warning was ignored. In the far reaches of the galaxy, powerful empires began whispering among themselves. The Kreth, with their massive fleets of war cruisers, believed humans could be conquered with ease. The Solari Dominion, masters of energy weapons, scoffed at the thought of fearing a small world. And the Varick Swarm, a hive of countless numbers, decided they would prove once and for all that humans were nothing but prey. They looked at Earth and saw opportunity. They looked at human colonies and saw easy targets. What they did not see, what they could not understand, was the silence of the Council. The Council did not join in the laughter. They remembered the scars of history. They remembered the last time someone ignored the warning. Entire systems had burned before the humans were satisfied, but the proud empires dismissed it all. They said the council was weak. They said humans were small. They said warnings were only shadows. And so fleets were built, weapons charged, soldiers prepared, plans were made to strike at the humans, to claim their worlds, to erase their pride. The Kreth promised a swift campaign that would end in glory. The Solari promised the destruction of human fleets in a single battle. The Varick Swarm promised to flood human skies with their endless numbers. They thought themselves hunters. But far across the stars, on quiet human colonies, strange things were already happening. Scouts disappeared without reports. Small fleets that should have been easy victories returned broken, their survivors whispering of human tactics that made no sense. Ships fought like predators, darting in and out, refusing to surrender. Soldiers fought with fury, using weapons in ways no one had predicted, and still the empires pushed forward, blind with pride. The warning echoed again and again in the halls of memory, but no one listened. Do not provoke the humans. In the darkness between the stars, a storm was gathering. The humans were watching. They were waiting. And when the first strike came, when the first alien empire dared to test them, the galaxy would finally see what the Council had tried to say all along. Humans were not prey. They were something far worse. The arrogant believed they were safe, but extinction had already begun to breathe at their backs. The first move came from the Kreth Empire. They had always believed in strength through fear, and their war cruisers had brought countless civilizations to their knees. To them, humanity was just another weak race to be crushed under their engines of war. With confidence burning in their hearts, they sent a fleet of 50 warships toward a human colony at the edge of known space. The colony was called Dawnstar, a small settlement on a planet rich with minerals and water. The Kreth expected no resistance. They thought they would land, enslave the settlers, and take the resources within days. Their fleet entered orbit, weapons glowing, shields raised high. Yet when they scanned the skies, they found something strange. Only 5 human ships stood guard, 5 against 50. The Kreth commander laughed, certain this battle would be over in minutes. But the first shots told a different story. The Kreth unleashed a storm of plasma fire, expecting to see human ships torn apart. Instead, the humans moved, not like prey, not like cowards. Their ships darted through the fire like shadows, weaving between blasts, striking back with weapons that seemed too small to matter. Yet somehow, every shot landed with precision. Kreth cruisers found their engines hit, their weapons disabled, their formations broken. The commander shouted in rage, demanding to know how 5 ships could cause such chaos. Humans had no massive fleets. They had no towering dreadnoughts. What they had was something far more dangerous. Adaptability. Each human ship moved differently, unpredictably, as though every pilot fought with their own mind, their own plan. The Kreth, who fought with rigid discipline and repeated tactics, could not keep up. Within the first hour, 3 Kreth ships were destroyed, 5 more drifting helplessly in space. The humans took losses too, but their spirit never broke. Even as one of their ships burned, its crew rammed directly into a Kreth war cruiser, splitting it apart in a blaze that lit the skies. The colony below watched in silence. Children, workers, and families gathered on rooftops, staring up as their guardians fought against impossible odds. To them, defeat seemed certain. Yet hope refused to die. They had seen this spirit before, in history books, in stories of Earth's old wars, when humanity fought against forces greater than themselves, and still endured. The Kreth commander grew desperate. He ordered all ships to unleash maximum firepower, even if it meant destroying the colony itself. "End this human resistance," he roared. "Show them fear." But fear was not what he found. The humans, battered but unbroken, revealed a hidden trick. Their smallest ship, thought destroyed earlier, suddenly reappeared. It had hidden in the shadow of a larger Kreth cruiser, invisible to sensors. At the right moment, it fired a concentrated blast into the cruiser's reactor core. The explosion was so massive it tore through 3 nearby ships. The Kreth fleet fell into disarray, confusion spreading like wildfire. And then, silence. The Kreth expected retreat. They expected surrender, but the humans did not run. Instead, the surviving ships formed a new formation, tight, precise, predatory. One by one, they began hunting the larger cruisers, striking from blind spots, targeting weak points, and vanishing before counterfire could reach them. For the first time in centuries, the Kreth knew fear. Hours later, the once proud fleet of 50 was gone, some destroyed, some crippled, some retreating in shame. Only a handful limped back into the void, carrying with them the impossible truth: humanity was not what they thought. On Dawnstar, the colonists cheered, though their cheers were heavy with sorrow for the lives lost. They knew the battle was only the beginning. If the Kreth had come, others would follow. The galaxy would not stop until humanity was tested again and again. Back in the Galactic Council, whispers spread quickly. News of the impossible battle reached every world. Some refused to believe it, others grew silent, remembering the Elders' warning. Yet the proud empires, the Solari Dominion, the Varick Swarm, refused to learn. To them, the Kreth had been careless. To them, humans had been lucky. And so they prepared their own fleets, greater and deadlier than before, but they did not understand what had truly happened at Dawnstar. For the humans, this was not luck. It was not chance. It was the beginning of something far greater. They had tested themselves. They had measured their enemy, and now they would prepare. The galaxy had taken its first step into a war it could not win, and the humans were only getting started. The defeat of the Kreth shocked many, but arrogance is a strong poison. The Solari Dominion watched the reports and scoffed. "The Kreth are brutes," their commander said. "They rely on heavy armor and slow tactics. They were bound to fail." To prove themselves, the Solari prepared their own fleet. Sleek, shining vessels powered by energy cores that burned brighter than stars. Their pride rested in their weapons, beams of light that could cut through metal as if it were cloth. They believed no one could withstand their fire. The target was another human colony, smaller than Dawnstar, on a frozen planet known as Arclight. The Solari fleet arrived with precision, their ships forming perfect lines across the sky. From orbit, they sent a transmission, "Surrender or be destroyed." But the humans did not answer. Their silence felt unsettling, yet the Solari pressed forward. They opened fire. Brilliant energy beams fell upon the planet, melting ice, shattering structures, tearing through defenses. To the Solari commanders, it looked like victory. But then the humans revealed something unexpected. Out of the icy wasteland, hidden bunkers opened, and launch bays roared to life. Swarms of human fighter craft burst into the sky, moving faster than Solari scanners could track. The Solari had expected fear. They found precision instead. The human fighters struck in waves, but not in random chaos. Every attack was coordinated, timed to perfection. One squadron would distract the enemy, while another struck from blind angles. They targeted engines, sensors, power relays, always the weak points, never the strong. Solari commanders shouted for their fleets to hold formation, but the more they tightened their ranks, the more the humans exploited the cracks. On the ground, human troops fought too. Armed with weapons modified to resist energy blasts, they dug into trenches, refusing to break even as Solari fire rained upon them. Every time the Dominion expected surrender, the humans countered with brutal determination. Even in the frozen wasteland, with death all around them, they held. But the most shocking revelation came not from the fighters, not from the soldiers, but from the way humans adapted. Within hours of the first strike, they had already changed their tactics. They adjusted their weapons to pierce Solari shields. They shifted their formations to counter Solari beams. It was as though every mistake, every loss, was absorbed instantly, turned into knowledge, and returned as vengeance. The Solari had never faced such an enemy. They believed wars were won with superior weapons. But here was a species that learned with terrifying speed, a species that turned defeat into fuel, fear into fire. One Solari captain, desperate and afraid, sent a private message to his commander. "This is not a normal enemy. They fight as though they know us before we act. They change too quickly. It is unnatural." By the end of the second day, the Solari fleet was broken. Their shining beams of energy, once symbols of dominance, now seemed like candles against a storm. They retreated, abandoning their mission, their pride shattered. Arclight still stood, scarred but unbroken. The galaxy took notice. Whispers filled the council halls once more. The elder who had given the warning remained silent, but his eyes spoke the truth. The storm has begun. Other races started searching. Through the old records, the hidden files that spoke of human endurance, they found stories of Earth's ancient wars where humans fought against each other with fury unmatched. They discovered tales of soldiers who held ground for days without food, pilots who fought until their ships turned to ash, and explorers who survived worlds that killed every other race. The truth spread like wildfire. Humans were not powerful because of technology or ships or numbers. They were powerful because of something the galaxy could not understand, their will. Where most species calculated losses and surrendered when odds became impossible, humans pushed further. They did not fight only to win. They fought because losing was not an option, but still many did not believe. The Varric swarm, endless in number, mocked the stories. "What is the will of one when crushed by millions?" they hissed. They prepared their invasion, confident that numbers alone would drown the humans. What they did not know was that humans were already preparing too. In hidden shipyards orbiting distant stars, massive vessels were being built. Dark, angular warships, unlike anything seen before. They were not made to defend, they were made to strike back. The battles at Dawnstar and Arclight had taught the humans more than their enemies realized. Every weakness of the Creth, every tactic of the Solari, every mistake and every victory, recorded, studied, and turned into weapons of war. For centuries, the galaxy had laughed at humanity. For centuries, the Council had warned against provoking them. And now humanity was about to show why. The Varric swarm would soon learn the same lesson the Creth and Solari had ignored. Humans were never prey. They were predators waiting for the right moment, and that moment was coming. The galaxy believed humans would stop after Arclight. The Creth had been humbled. The Solari had been broken. Many thought humanity would retreat into silence, rebuild their colonies, and wait for the next storm. But they were wrong. Humanity had no intention of waiting. The time for defense was over. Now came retaliation. In secret shipyards, hidden among asteroid belts and gas giants, human engineers had been working tirelessly. They were not building small ships anymore. They were creating monsters, vessels larger than cities, forged from metals pulled from death worlds no other species dared to mine. Warships with armor so dense they could absorb entire barrages, with weapons so fierce they could shatter fleets in seconds. They called them sovereign-class destroyers. When the Varric swarm finally moved, it was too late. Billions of insectoid soldiers poured from hive ships, descending on human space. The swarm believed numbers would overwhelm all resistance. They had done it countless times before, erasing civilizations in waves of fire and hunger. They expected humanity to crumble under the weight of endless enemies. But this time, humanity struck first. From the dark edge of the system, the destroyer Leviathan appeared. Black, sharp, and silent, it moved like a predator stalking its prey. The Varric commanders laughed at the sight of a single ship against their swarm of thousands. But their laughter ended when the first shot fired. It was not a beam nor a missile, but something new, a weapon of pure devastation that tore through space like a blade of darkness. One hive ship simply vanished, consumed in an explosion that lit the stars. The swarm panicked. They turned their guns toward the destroyer, unleashing torrents of fire. But the Leviathan did not fall. Its shields absorbed the storm, its armor shrugged off impacts, and with every counterstrike, another hive ship was erased. Then came the second destroyer, then the third. Soon the sky was filled with human warships, each one a nightmare made real. The swarm, endless in number, began to scatter. But there was no escape. Human fleets moved with purpose, striking like hunters who knew their prey too. Well, they cut off retreat paths, they trapped hive ships in kill zones, and they hunted until the void was filled with burning wreckage. For the first time in history, the Varric swarm, creatures that prided themselves on never knowing fear, felt True terror. They sent desperate calls to the Council begging for aid, but the Council remained silent. They had warned the galaxy. Now they watched it burn. On human worlds, the news spread like fire. Families who had once lived in fear now raised their heads high. The galaxy had tried to erase them, but humanity had answered with power no one had imagined. Across the colonies, voices echoed the same words. Never again will we be prey. But behind the pride was something darker. Humanity was no longer satisfied with survival. They had tasted vengeance, and vengeance was addictive. Admiral spoke of pushing further, striking not just those who attacked, but every empire that had laughed at them. Politicians argued that peace was impossible now, that humanity's only safety lay in dominance, and so the fleets moved. The Kreth were the first target. Their war cruisers, once symbols of fear, fell like toys before the sovereign destroyers. Cities burned, stations collapsed, and the proud Kreth emperors knelt in chains. The Solari were next. Their shining energy fleets cracked under human guns, their weapons turned to ash. One by one, their worlds fell silent. The galaxy could not believe what it was seeing. For centuries, humans had been ignored, dismissed as fragile newcomers. Now, they were predators unleashed, their fleets carving paths of fire through the stars. Every battle was a message. Every victory was a warning. The Galactic Council gathered again, their chamber filled with fear. "They will not stop," one elder whispered. "We thought they only wanted survival, but they want more." The elder who had warned them long ago finally spoke again. His voice was heavy with sorrow. "I told you. I begged you to listen. Humans endure. They fight. And when you push them too far, they become extinction itself." The council chamber fell silent. Outside, across the galaxy, human fleets continued their march, and the galaxy realized too late that retaliation had only just begun. The galaxy had thought humanity's fury would end with the defeat of the Varick swarm. But the humans were not finished. The Kreth, the Solari, and the swarm had struck first, believing Earth to be weak. Now humanity carried a new belief of its. None of them should be allowed to rise again. The human fleets expanded like fire through dry grass. One by one, they marked enemy strongholds, cutting deep into enemy territory. The Leviathan led the charge, joined by more destroyers, each one a fortress of death. Their cannons burned brighter than suns. Their armor shrugged off barrages, and their commanders fought with strategies the galaxy had never seen before. The Kreth fell first. Their proud war cruisers met the destroyers in open space. For hours, plasma fire lit the void, but human ships did not break formation. They circled the Kreth fleets like wolves around prey, tearing them apart piece by piece. Kreth cities, once filled with pride and wealth, turned into ruins under orbital bombardment. Their emperor, once arrogant, was dragged before human soldiers and forced to kneel. The message spread across the stars. Those who mocked Earth now bow before it. Next came the Solari Dominion. Their fleets, once glowing with beams of pure light, shattered in the face of human weapons designed to counter them. Every Solari tactic had been studied after Arclight. Every weakness had been mapped. Human fighters slipped through shield cracks, destroyers fired at exact points where Solari armor was thin, and ground troops stormed their gleaming cities with brutal precision. Solari pride turned to silence, their golden towers burning until nothing but shadows remained. But the fall of the Varick swarm was the most terrifying of all. For centuries, the swarm had consumed world after world, drowning enemies in sheer numbers. They had never known defeat, but humans did not fear numbers. They adapted to them. Entire destroyers unleashed storms of fire that cleared thousands at once. On the ground, soldiers carried flamethrowers, explosives, and weapons built to cut through endless hordes. Whole hives collapsed, burned from inside out. For the first time in their history, the swarm retreated. Their endless hunger ended in screams. The galaxy watched in horror as entire civilizations fell within months. What had once been mighty empires now lay in ashes, their fleets gone, their worlds silent. Humanity did not stop to rest. They did not pause to rebuild. Their war machine only grew stronger with every victory, fueled by resources taken from their fallen enemies, and yet behind the steel and fire there was something more frightening: silence. Human commanders did not celebrate. They did not shout their victories across the stars. They fought in silence, their ships moving with cold precision, as if they were not driven by hate or pride, but by something deeper: survival mixed with vengeance. The Galactic Council trembled. Once, they had believed themselves to be the guardians of peace. Now they were powerless. They had warned the galaxy, but no one had listened. And now, even they wondered, when humanity finished with the invaders, would they stop? Or would their gaze fall upon everyone? On human colonies, the people did not speak of mercy. They remembered Dawnstar, where families had feared the Creth. They remembered Arclight, where children had shivered under Solari fire. They remembered the swarm devouring villages whole. To them, this war was justice. Every fallen empire was one less threat to their survival. Every burning city was a message written in fire: never again will humans be prey. In the ruins of Creth space, survivors whispered of shadows. In Solari systems, the last governors begged for forgiveness. In swarm territory, hives lay empty, their screams still echoing in the void. Humanity had erased the invaders with such speed and fury that even neutral species began to fear. And then came the moment that changed everything. A broadcast appeared across the Council's communication channels. A human admiral, standing tall in the command deck of the Leviathan, spoke only a few words. His voice was calm, steady, terrifying in its certainty. Those who brought war to us are no more. Let this be a lesson. Humanity forgives nothing. We remember everything. If any empire dares again, know this: what we have done to them, we will do to you. The broadcast ended, but the message echoed across every star. The fall of the invaders was complete. The galaxy was silent, too silent. Because now the question was no longer, can humans survive? The question was, who will survive humans?